I probably learned more in that 3.5-hour appointment than I did the entire semester before. Because John was asking him questions about me as a female athlete. So I got to be this fly on the wall case study between John Meadows and Eric Serrano about female athlete health. And that was a really big moment for me when I was just like, so if John doesn't know, who does? Like, who's, if I can't find it in my textbooks, my profs don't know, doctors don't know. If Eric is this key to knowledge, then I better listen to him. And, I mean, even in that appointment, I wanted to go into medicine, and Eric Serrano was like, no, you're too smart for that. Go into research. If you want to make change, go into research. I mean, I went into research. I listened to him.
Really?
So that trip, it was a fundamental
moment
in my life.
You're too smart for that.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding. Of course, I'm with the producer, Scott McNally, Dusty Hanshaw, my co-host. I'm Big Ron Partlow. And on today's show, Victoria Felkar, doctoral researcher, educator, also the better half to our producer, Scott McNally. So they just happen to be on the same camera, in the same household. Thank you for joining us on the show, Victoria. Welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding.
Thank you for having me, and you're welcome. It's been a long time coming, so I think I've actually dodged it probably 20
may have
times
at some
now.
point.
Yeah.
We're glad to finally get you tried.
Yeah. Okay, well, before we get going, I'll get the housekeeping out of the way. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell.
And definitely helps us out. So thank you to everyone. And also remember our sponsor, Mutant, IamMutant.com. Get the ISO Surge. Get the all-in pre-workout. And everyone should get on the gear. There you go. That's my little bit. Everyone should get on the gear. Okay. Oh, Dusty 20, Big Ron 20. There we go.
Yes. Jeez.
Everything's handled. Now, pure knowledge. Prepare your brains to just be filled with Victoria Felkar's knowledge and help. She's here to help us, Dusty. She's here to help.
Specifically, you and I.
Yeah. Okay, here's my lead question, Victoria. How many bodybuilders are idiots?
Oh, boy.
What percentage?
How many idiots
No whole
are
numbers. No whole numbers. That's a good point.
How many idiots are bodybuilders? Nah, she turns it around and makes the question.
We just all lost.
There we go. How many bodybuilders are idiots? That is not the question you're looking for, Ron. How many idiots are bodybuilders? That's some poetry there, Victoria. No, you've really really done a lot to learn about stuff that it seems like, how do I put this, is extremely important.
Yes.
And
I would like to
did you
think
see
so.
a void? Yeah, sort of help everyone understand. Like, I've known you for a long time, like almost 20 years, hey? Like, I don't even remember what year we would have met.
13, 15, somewhere
really?
in that range.
I thought I knew you like 09 or 08 or something, but yeah, it was a while ago. But anyways,
2010, I think I first met. No. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's been a while.
2009, I think. Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, see, it's more closer
I actually
to where I
met
thought.
you first, then Dusty, then Scott.
I was last.
Save the best for last.
Yep. And so I remember when you were going to school and doing your PhD out in Vancouver, and you were like broke ass student and like doing that whole thing. And and so I've seen you develop over the years, and then next thing I know, you're like speaking at Swiss, and you're like consulting with like high level competitors, and yeah, it's just awesome. So maybe give people a bit of a background into like what you do. What
I do. I think Scott probably can talk about that better than I can, because most days I don't think I even know yet. But so I am a researcher. I guess that's the most basic place to start. And my research looks at the human body. But if I want to like carve it out more, it's the athletic body. And if I want to carve it out a little bit more, it would be the athletic female body. But in order to understand the athletic female body, we have to understand the athletic body, male and female, and then just the body. So yeah, when people kind of go like, well, how did you get to this place? It's like, well, I've done all the grunt work in all the sciences, but then I've just gradually carved it out. And so I look at the, I guess, pursuit of performance from cellular level to social level. So I'm an interdisciplinary researcher, which means I cross boundaries from like the hard sciences, biology, chemistry, applied pharmacology, but then I also look at the social side of it. So where did it come from in terms of certain drug policies, or how did certain drugs come to be? Because that really shapes how they get actually used in practice, the histories of them, all of that stuff. So it's very much a giant clusterfuck of material.
Good.
I wanted to be the first one to drop it, so
I like it. I like that she waited it and then rolled it out there. But just so you know, we use the term performance medicine on this podcast.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
no, if we get into
forward.
that, I was like, I came home, I listened to that show, and I came home and I was like, Scott, why didn't you tell them this is what I research? Because
This
part
is
of
what
what I
show
do,
finds.
I mean, really, Ron, you kept saying disrupting the narrative. So if we think of like performance enhancing drugs versus performance enhancing medicine, part of what my research does is try to disrupt the narrative that's been created or the identity of these drugs. Why do we call testosterone in some settings performance enhancing, but in other settings we call it therapeutic, and in other settings we call it enhancement or rejuvenating? So that's really kind of like if we claw at and scratch down, like, what do I actually study? As I study drugs in sport, particularly in females, the ways in which they've been regulated and policed and prescribed, and how that affects really the care of the female athlete.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So I want to ask a question. I don't know if this is like anywhere near what you care about, but what drugs are female Olympians using? Like specifically.
You're going to hate my answer. It's
Okay.
relative.
I like it.
It's relative.
Is
I mean,
Right,
you're going
right.
to have some female athletes that are...
I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
time, half lives, and all that stuff. There's so
Yeah.
many variables that would.
There's so many different variables, and there's so much we don't know because of how regulated it is. It's not like there's written histories of people's drug protocols. Like, you'd have to be an idiot to actually have a written diary of all the different drugs and their clearance times if you're at that level. When there's
Right.
sponsorship and money and citizenship and like all these things on the line, depending on the country, even police, or pardon me, not police time, but jail time. Police regulate it because it's the state-sponsored sports. So it kind of crosses those boundaries between, if an athlete's using a drug that's technically not illegal in society, but is illegal in sport, that in certain countries, it's still seen as being an illegal act, and therefore they can be thrown in jail, which is just crazy.
Yeah. I remember seeing one thing after Lance got busted, and there was like some actual information about what he was using, and I was so fascinated because the doses were very low.
Yeah.
And I sort of thought, oh, this is like an Olympic style thing. Like this
Yeah.
is what you'd see in the Olympics. So I thought maybe someone else had come forward and, maybe you'd interviewed someone who.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the list of the Russian athletes used. I've got all the drug list. I was able to get my
Right.
hands on that, and that was 2017, 18 is when I first got that spreadsheet, and it was the results of both the drug testing and then also what did they actually have records of. And for me, a lot of the drugs that were on there, I was like, they're not using this. Like, this is because the drug testing's not a perfect science. It's
Right.
not at all perfect science, and a great example of this is something like nandrolone, where we have natural nandrolone metabolites in our bloodstream, in our urine. We excrete them. Whether or not you've used nandrolone, that's not what we're talking about. These are natural nandrolone metabolites. And so when I saw a ton of Russian female athletes flagged for nandrolone. I was like, that ain't nandrolone. Like, no, this is not. It's either going to be a progesterone type, a specific type of contraceptive that gets used, particularly to delay the menstrual cycle, or maybe it was another metabolite of a different drug, but downstream, or that's just their own natural nandrolone metabolites, depending on if they've got higher levels of natural androgens. And then they also had their testing done right after they got off the track, and their urine was super concentrated, and they were also just about to have their menstrual cycle, so like that week before. If all of that perfect storm came together, plus some genetic epigenetic stuff, then yeah, they might flag for nandrolone at a higher level than they're allowed to. But I'm like, they're not stupid enough to use nandrolone. Like, that drug has got such a crazy political history within sport, and knowing what the Russians did, I was like, that's not an accurate representation. So, you know, at the end of the day, we don't know. I think that a lot of the drugs that are being used so carefully that we don't have an accurate kind of like word on the street, because nobody's going to talk about it. I can tell you what I know from my own kind of inquiry, people I've worked with, stories I've heard, but it's nothing crazy because these people are mutants to begin with. Yeah, they're not the ones taking crazy peptides and SARMs and all this other stuff. They're, a lot of times it's you know, even fundamentals. There's one Olympian I've worked with that she didn't know, like, she thought creatine was like steroid, like, do not touch creatine. And I was like, whoa, wow, we got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of barriers to break down, because there was just such a don't take supplement mentality, because they assumed that all supplements would be tainted. So she went through her entire athletic career thinking that creatine was a banned substance.
It's funny that you mention that, because I've met a handful of Olympic athletes who were, you know, because we have this thing, like, all the Olympians, they must all be like right in on the, you know, doing everything they can. And I've met a lot of Olympic athletes that had no idea about anything. Like, they didn't know anything about supplements. They didn't know anything about nutrition. It was like unbelievable. Like the creatine thing, I'm not surprised. Yeah. And so when I meet people, they're like, oh, all those Olympians are all juiced to the gills. I'm like, you may surprise me, man. Like, it's crazy to me.
Yeah. And the way, you know, I see it, it's a continuum where you'll have these like very straight edge purists on one side, and then you'll have like the, what did you call it the other day? Chemical warfare on the other side. And you can lie anywhere in there. And so I don't think we can say that all athletes are doped up or all athletes are clean. I think there is definitely an ignorance within sport that, oh, drugs, they don't dope. They've got too much regulations. It's like, no, people do dope. People are just really smart at how they do it. You know, clearing drugs is not that difficult to do, to be honest, depending on what the drug is. And if you have a little bit of basic knowledge, I mean, there are some crazy things that can skew drug testing because it's not a perfect science. And then on the other end of it is that, yes, there are a lot of athletes that are petrified, like petrified to touch even Tylenol, Advil, like these things that are absolutely A-okay. You know, too much caffeine. Years ago, NCAA regulated how much caffeine athletes were allowed to take. So you have this fear-mongering, these scare tactics, which in my opinion have actually done a disservice to sport, because we're not able to protect the health and welfare of athletes. And that to me is like a huge kind of driving force of my own work, is going like, you know, if we create this scare tactic, we're not helping people. Same thing with bodybuilding. If we do the opposite, if we're so pro steroids and gear and everything else, we're not doing a service to athletes. It's the opposite. We have to meet in the middle somewhere.
Right. So this leads me to, I want to go make sure people understand that you are also a meathead.
Yes.
And we talked about this at the beginning. And you come from bodybuilding. Like, that's how I met you, was at the hardcore gym, you know?
In Alberta.
Yeah. So, you know, you worked with Meadows. You know, tell us about how you you kind of got into that and how that stage in your life affected where you are now.
Yeah. I was actually reflecting on this morning because I was like, wow, I've had a really interesting path. So I was a classical ballet dancer growing up. I started dancing at about 2.5. And I'm 5 foot and very densely muscled even from a young age. I tried to, reshape my body. Puberty was not kind to me at all. Tried to.
Can we add in a picture?
Oh, hell no.
No? Okay.
No. But I started running to try to lose weight. I had a terrible eating disorder. I was running 9 to 18 kilometers a day at 13, 14, 15 years old, and had 300 calories. Let's talk about resilience. Like, I still got straight A 4.0. I don't know how I lived on broccoli and sugar-free mints. I don't know how I did that, but finally got to the gym, and it was actually just to run. And I saw a bunch of guys. I trained at the Tonglui YMCA in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. And I saw these guys, and they looked like they were having fun. And I look over at the treadmill, and it was a bunch of women, and they looked miserable. And I was like, something doesn't seem like I want to do what they're doing. They are having fun. They look like they're actually enjoying what they're doing. And so I asked some of the guys I went to school with, can you show me some exercises? And I did bicep curl, tricep push down, shoulder press, lat pull down. That was my rotation every day because that's all I knew how to do. And I loved, I fell in love right away. And I was 15 years old at the time. And at that point in time, there wasn't women in the weight room. You didn't see women training. It was funny, you guys were talking about gym stereotypes, and it was there really wasn't anybody. Women-wise back then, there was maybe that one woman who competed, maybe in the 90s that still looked like she had some muscle and taught group fitness classes, the step classes, had that hard edge on her a little bit, but that was it. And so I actually went and I did my personal training certificate almost right away just to learn. I just wanted to learn how to train. And fast forward, I started working it was Platinum Athletic Club in grade 12. And it was a more of what would be a bodybuilder's gym. It was a Gold's gym. Really clever name switch there. And I worked the morning. And so I worked opening. So I would see people coming in to train for provincials it was that summer, doing their cardio. And I was just in awe. I was oh my goodness, these people are jacked. And there was this one guy, and I was saying to Scott, I'm I wish I remembered his last name, but his name was Tommy, and he was the most hardcore human being I'd ever met at that point. And he taught me what tren was because he was so lean and vascular, and I was just how do you do that? And he was tren, and I was what's tren? And he brought me in a stack of muscular development, Flex, and a couple other magazines from the 90s, and this big stack of them. And he was here. And I read cover to cover. I dog-eared. I pulled out the workouts. I had one of the Animal Pack Frank McGrath posters in my room. The training posters.
How old?
17.
Okay.
So yeah, I loved it, and I was really strong. I was really, as much as I've got fat genes, my fat genes also are what make me really strong. And so I put muscle on, especially after being so nutrient deprived. When I started eating, and my eating disorder was, I'm coming out of an eating disorder, and I had crazy endurance because of running. So I put on a lot of muscle, and people took note because they're just dang, this girl is she's just going and going. And, people start to hey, you should go talk to this coach, or you should go talk to that person. So I just really got into the bodybuilding scene, and I loved it. When I started first year university, I ended up getting really sick. So my body tried to have its first menstrual cycle, and my immune system shut down, and it just was terrible. Gained about 30 pounds in 3 weeks. And as somebody who's recovering eating disorder plus meathead, that was terrifying for me. I kept training through it though, because I was I know if I just do enough cardio and diet, I'll get through this, and no, it didn't work. So bounced around to all these different doctors, again, like fast forwarding a bit, but I met a guy named Jeremy Mishkinis, who is again from British Columbia, and it was because some guy at a supplement shop that I went in to go buy creatine was like, you've gained weight, and I was like, I know. He's like, you should talk to my coach. So Jeremy hooked up with him. He was just like, I don't know what to do with you. There's a guy in the forum named Mountain Dog. Here's his email him. And so I reached out to John Meadows at 18, 19 years old and said, like, help. And at that point, John was working at the bank. He had maybe 10 clients. I don't know what he saw in me, but I am forever grateful that he saw something. And he would get me to, he helped. I mean, he's why I'm here. Within 6 months, he was like, your body is not responding to anything I'm throwing at it. You need to come see Dr. Eric Serrano. And that trip, I met Eric Serrano, John Meadows, and Dave Tate, because I went and did a leg workout at Elite. And Dave was talking last week when you guys talked about him, about the people that would come and, train with them legs on Saturday. I was one of those at the old compound. And the first time I met Dave Tate, I was doing seated hamstring curl, and he came over and John was like, pushing me along in the workout. Dave looks at me and he was like grunted, and he went and he grabbed a band and came back and wrapped my feet together. And he was like, now do it. And that was my first interaction with Dave Tate. I was terrified of him my first time I met him. Absolutely terrified. He's like, your squat sucks. I was like, okay. And then that leg press you're talking about, I got just annihilated in it because I'm 5 feet. I couldn't even reach it. And then the guys let go of it, and I wasn't expecting just the sled to weigh as much as it did, and it just bottomed.
Did it bury you?
Absolutely. Luckily my legs are short, but I just remember being like, oh fuck, I can't do this. So yeah, that was, I think it was one of those perfect storm, because it was the right place at the right time. Meeting all of these people fueled my curiosity. At that point in time, Bigger, Stronger, Faster had just came out, so it was I was trying to figure out well, why do people think steroids are bad if I know a lot of people that are on them at the gym? These are my friends are the meatheads. And why is my sport ethics teacher telling me that they're unethical? My friends aren't unethical. So, going and burying myself in the library and going through my own health journey of women's health and just seeing that void that existed. Nobody knew what to do with me. People accused me of being on anabolic steroids because I was a young, strong female, and naturally my lipids were elevated because of being hyperandrogenic, having high levels of androgens. Naturally, I had hair growth and my voice changed, and so I was being accused of it. And I was like, okay, but this is kind of cool, because if people think that I'm on these things and I'm not, that means I got to be doing something right. That's how meathead extreme I was. And
the rumors are good.
Yeah, I'm like, this must be good. I was at 19. I was dumbbell pressing 90s.
Damn.
Don't understand it. So yeah, I've done it. I've done the leg workouts. I've done the hours of cardio. I've done the diets. I've done the body that doesn't respond. I've gotten lean. I've gotten way too fat with a lot of muscle. I've done it. I don't think people know that about me, because they kind of pick my career up when it actually was more of Victoria, the academic. Funny story though, Ron, you were the reason why I got Instagram. I don't know if you know that.
Really?
You forced me into getting Instagram.
How did that
Did
happen?
you, Ron?
Yeah.
What did I do?
My very first, if you go way back, my very first post is of with you and me. It's a picture at Gold's Gym Burnaby. You were in town training. I was training at the gym. We grabbed a picture after the workout, and I was like, yeah, send it to me. You're like, no, I'm going to post it on Instagram. And I was like, shit. That means if I'm going to get this picture, I have to get Instagram, because you couldn't just go on and look at people's profiles. So you're the very first post of mine on Instagram.
No kidding.
Yep.
Remember, the guys will remember this. I told them about how Rich Piana made me get Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's very possible that that's why I did that, was because I was doing what Rich did to me.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because Rich was like, you have to get on Instagram. You have to. And I was like, so I might have done that to you, because that almost fits the timeline.
Yeah. It'd be like 2013, 2014, somewhere in that range, yeah. Yeah, and I was like, I refused. I was like, I'm not doing this shit. Bodybuilding's for me. I don't want to take pictures. Like, that's not why I do this. So, most people don't know that. And I've never, posted workouts. I've never posted my physique. Like, that's just not, bodybuilding is my thing.
Right. What, okay, I don't know. I got so many prep questions. I don't want to, step on the guys. You got something you want to go with first, Dusty?
No, listen, my stuff is the important stuff.
Yeah.
These are the things that people really want to know. So I think I'm gonna hold my stuff for a little later because I like to put them on the spot. I want you to get her comfortable, and then I'm gonna dismantle.
Get me talking geeky. Yeah,
I've got something still. I was curious. So you went out to meet John, and that's where you met Dr. Eric Serrano. What was that trip like? Like, I know you said you met Dave Tate then too, but you were 18 years old, literally leaving the country to go stay with this man that you met online
on the internet,
on the forums.
Sounding good.
You know what I mean?
And it was it was reading week. It was like Canadian spring break, and it was semester break because it was May. It was the first time I went on an airplane alone. It was the first time I went on an airplane alone to the States. I had all my meals packed too, like freezer that baked them, like everything was good. First time I took a cab alone because John was working at the bank, so he couldn't pick me up when my flight got there. So I'd take a cab from the Columbus airport to the hotel in Easton. I mean, it was awesome. Like I have such core memories that were made that trip. Like just even the drive from where we were in Easton staying out to Elite with John, and he had a Hummer at the time, and he was listening to Tupac. It was the most memorable experience of John Meadows driving through the country, just to music that I was like, why is John listening to this? But he really truly shaped my both, I would say, my career, but also my personal life. John really instilled in me, even that trip, the importance of family values. Because he said to me, he's like, no, I have to be done in the gym at this time. I've got to get home. I've got my family duties on Friday because the twins were just born around that time. And I just remember being like, oh, he's so cool. He really does. He's doing it. He's got the career. He's got the bodybuilding. He's got the coaching. He's got the fan. This is really cool to see that. Eric's appointment, that was, it was 3.5 hours long. John went with me, picked me up at the hotel. He was just and he gave me kind of a warning too. He's like, so Dr. Serrano speaks very fast. Very fast. And I just was like, okay, yeah, whatever. No, I was not prepared for that. I was like, what? What did he just say? I probably learned more in that 3.5 hour appointment than I did the entire semester before. Because John was asking him questions about me as a female athlete. So I got to be this fly on the wall case study between John Meadows and Eric Serrano about female athlete health. And that was a really big moment for me when I was just like, so if John doesn't know, who does? If I can't find it in my textbooks, my profs don't know, doctors don't know. If Eric is this key to knowledge, then I better listen to him. I mean, even in that appointment, I wanted to go into medicine, and Eric Serrano was like, no, you're too smart for that. Go into research. If you want to make change, go into research. I mean, I went into research. I listened to him.
Really?
So that trip, it was a fundamental
moment
in my
life. You're too smart for that.
Yeah.
That's
because he said you're going to question
awesome.
Everything and you're going to regret it. He's like, you're going to be bound by certain rules with your different types of affiliations, and you're not going to be allowed to do certain things that you're going to need to do, and you either can do it and get excommunicated from the medical community, or you can go into research.
Right.
Yeah, and 19 years old, I was like, okay, got it. Yeah.
So, what did Eric think was going on with you at the time? What were some of the things that he was like, whoa?
Yeah, so he... I think this is also too when I realized some of the things that were really important. Like I came to that appointment with every single set of lab work I'd had done at that point. I already came to that appointment with my timeline. Everything was charted. I think my mom was a huge influence of that, but it allowed him and John just to sit down and actually like look at my life up until that point in time and go like, okay, where have things gone potentially astray? And so I think a big piece of my puzzle was I was put on the oral contraceptive pill after only 2 menses or bleeds. So at that point in time, a woman has not fully developed reproductively for the first 7 to 10 years after her first menstrual cycle. The highway is getting created, all the different signals, how receptors are communicating and acting with each other, metabolic pathways. And so I essentially was like, we talk about young boys on an anabolic shuts down their testosterone production. If they start too young, too high. Well, this is an example of a young female gets put on synthetic hormones way too young and also has a horrendous eating disorder. So my hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis was shut down, as well as my hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So at that point in time, I had been diagnosed with Cushing's disease because my cortisol was so high. And then within a month or two, I was diagnosed with Addison's because it dropped. And so when I saw Eric, I was not making cortisol. There was not, and it was over time. I just was not creating it as I should have been. My pituitary gland stopped working. So like my growth hormone levels were just abysmal for my age. My thyroid had shut down. So what his philosophy, theory about me was that I didn't go through puberty properly. And then when I was off the pill, eating, training hard, my body finally was like, okay, let's try this again. And that's when my immune system attacked it, essentially attacked my ovarian health and function. And as a result, my body just didn't respond to hormones anymore in the same way. And it was a long road forward. You pair that also with the fact that I became incredibly good at gluconeogenesis. I became, as an eating disorder, eating 300 calories a day and exercising. So I was running, I was dancing. I was in part-time high school because I was dancing so much. I was not, it's like to this day, we're like, what was I burning? Because I still had body fat on me. I had muscle on me. But what was I burning? Because there wasn't any fuel going in there. And so metabolically, I created this super fortress adaptation, which made it so fat loss was at that point, friggin' impossible. At one point, we tried a true ketogenic diet for 2 weeks. And we could not get any ketones. Both serum and urine. Your body
would not make ketones.
No, absolutely not.
It was busy turning protein into fuel.
And then we tried doing, we tried a ton of different types of dietary testing. So I would try doing a high protein stint and getting my labs done, high carb stint, getting my labs done, high fat stint, getting my labs done. And I responded the same no matter what my fuel source was at that point in time. John was like, let's try doing a high rep, 6-week protocol of just really high reps. I grew my legs. John was like, what the hell? This does not make sense. You should not be responding like this. We tried doing cardio before training. John and I really tried, and I learned so much in that process. And that was before seeing Eric. So we were able, when we went to Eric, to be like, these are all the things we've tried. What do we do? Eric, I was having anovulatory cycles. I was hyperandrogenic. I had no growth hormone. I had no melatonin. I had no, all these essential things we need to function as humans. I didn't have. And on top of that, I'm a strong type A personality.
You?
Yeah, me. At not sleeping, not overtraining. It was this just gross storm of things. And so it was slowly stripping things back and realizing that I didn't have to train as hard as I was, even though I loved it. I didn't need to kill myself with dieting. I knew that my body was going to have to go backwards a bit in order to move forward. Doing some hormone replacement with things like progesterone, which I very much negatively responded to initially because my body just had never had it before. So then that led me to go into the world of what do I do? who else is like me? Where are the case reports? Like, how can I use this now as a jumping off platform to use my own experiences to see what type of research exists? And at the end of the day, there was none.
So I got to ask about how this relates to some of the stuff that we see with the metabolic disorders in the bodybuilding community, because we've all seen females that have competed and had, oh, look at that. Hey, buddy. We've all seen females that competed and then, they have that terrible metabolic syndrome. Yeah. I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah. How
does that relate to what you had gone through? Like, which one of their axes is shut down? What's mainly going on there?
Well, I think it's a sum of all factors. You asked me very first thing, are bodybuilders idiots? No, but they like linear thinking. They like 1 + 1 = 2. And that's not the way the human body works. The human body is this chaotic, interconnected, non-linear dynamic system. It's never just one thing. And if we think that, we're the fools. Because it's always going to be the sum of all things, and even things not even within my life that influences me. Maternal and paternal health, genetics, transgenerational traumas. These things affect the way our bodies work, and how we have progressed through our life affects how our metabolism or fat loss or muscle ability. There are so many different channels and different pieces that if you get enough kind of dysfunctions or non-normative functioning pathways, if you put them, into that blender and stir it up in a contest prep, bad things are going to happen. One of the things that I've seen over time is that the more, and I'm going to use this term very largely, kind of broad, is unhealthy an individual is before they start something like a contest prep, the more likely they are to be unhealthy after the prep. It's not like their health is going to magically improve. And so if they were doing, a ton of training and cardio and insufficient nutrition, and they already had hormonal issues and, psychosocial stressors and relationship problems and all this other stuff before they started prep, why is that going to get better once we add things like the Clen cocktail and the T3 and the Anavar in? That's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And if anything, it's going to maybe give them a little bit of glue to get them through that prep. And then now you've got to pull them, have people just stop. And it's like now you've just added another stressor in. We've had this period of time that you've now accumulated even more stress. One of the theories that gets used in kind of both psychiatry, also like metabolic medicine, is about what's called reserves. And it's the idea that over our life course, we have a reserve, just like the Federal Bank Reserve, and that we have this reserve and that certain types of stressors deplete this reserve. And one of the things that I see is individuals starting prep when they're already bankrupt. They got nothing to do and nothing to pull from, and they'll use things like, high amounts of cardiovascular training or drugs or hypocaloric to try to act almost like a cheat code, like a credit card, to give them a little bit more of that reserve back, but it's false. It's not a true reserve. They don't actually put money back in the bank. And that what would actually help them is to take time away from the stressors, or to try to reconfigure how their body is adapting to certain stressors, both psychologically, socially, emotionally, physiologically, before they start a contest prep. In my eyes, it's common sense. You pack before you go for a trip. You save before you go and spend.
Right. And are females' bodies, or their hormonal systems, I guess, is it fair to say they're less durable than a male's when it comes to just abusing them? Is that kind of because that's kind of how that's how we feel, but I'm not sure if that's the way to word it. Men seem to be able to handle this more.
Yeah,
is it just the test?
It's a debate. That it's a big debate, because so one of the things, as I mentioned, is that if a female's reproductive system takes about 7 to 10 years to be able to really form, so what's called very quick menstrual cycle 101, and grab the hook if I'm talking too much.
No.
But
I love me a good menstrual cycle riff. Let's go.
Okay, so women have something called the menstrual cycle. The menstrual cycle, through a very complex process, it's how we make most of our hormones, steroid hormones specifically. I call it the big three. You have your androgens, your estrogens, and progesterone. Progesterone is created, by and large, the very small percentage is made through another pathway, but most of a woman's progesterone is made from what's called an ovulatory menstrual cycle. And in order to have an ovulatory menstrual cycle, you have to have not only the right amount of hormonal environment and just overall physiological environment and psychological environment happening at a specific time, but also before that. So there's a ton of different processes that lead to this one point in our cycle that if everything aligns, all the stars align, we're going to be able to ovulate. So an ovulatory menstrual cycle is something that can happen or should happen regularly in a female, but in that first 7 to 10 years, you're more likely to not have a regular ovulatory cycle because your body is still figuring out, what to do and how to get there. Just like if you go through periods of high stress, psychologically, socially, physiologically, you're more likely to have what's called an anovulatory menstrual cycle. And then at the end of your reproductive kind of lifespan in perimenopause and into menopause, that perimenopause is this increasing rate of anovulatory cycles until all of a sudden you got no more juice in those ovaries to actually create hormones that are required for ovulation to occur. Therefore, we're not going to produce progesterone. And so progesterone is incredibly important for the human body. And when I look at a lot of the women that I've worked with over the years, what's happened is that they have not, number one, created an environment conducive to having regular ovulatory cycles in that first 7 to 10 years. Whether it's that they've gone on the pill, they've had an eating disorder, they've had rapid fat loss, they've had trauma psychologically or socially, but the environmental, internal and external, is not conducive in that first 7 to 10 years. So now they're in their 20s and they don't have this, like the building blocks for this really important physiological function. And now they enter a contest prep. And it's like progesterone is so important for buffering against stress. It converts and creates the neurotransmitter GABA. Well, GABA is like a blanket for our nervous system. If you're training hard, we need GABA. If we're dieting, we need GABA. We also have to have progesterone to help buffer cortisol. And so it's this like perfect kind of storm that I see that happens in individuals. So it's not necessarily that our hormonal systems are not as robust as men. That's what I would call a fallacy. I just think there's so much that happens in that first 7 to 10 years that gets ignored. People don't recognize just how important it is for, women to be active, to be eating sufficiently, to not be fixating about their body image, to, all the things we see that young girls are typically influenced by. Those are the things that are also going to diminish their capacity to have an ovulatory cycle or at least produce sufficient amounts of progesterone. And now that dramatically changes their life course, because if you don't have regular progesterone in that first kind of part of your reproductive life, you're changing the ways in which your body adapts and responds to stress. And you see this within oral contraceptive studies, and that they see that women who have been put on the pill early, if you look at their brain scans and you look at their neurotransmitters in their late 20s, early 30s, how they react to stress is different. How they buffer against stress is different. So we literally are now creating an environment that's not going to be allowing us to make adequate progesterone, even if all the other things are going right for us. It's wild.
Wow. So we created an epidemic of an issue that no one really noticed until people started trying to compete in bodybuilding shows.
Well, yeah, somewhat, yeah, because you can still bleed.
Right.
Not ovulate. And that's been one of my big messages with, in the fitness community, is trying to get that through people's heads. Because, I think I might be partially to blame for this, because when I first spoke at Swiss in 2016, I was identifying some of the things that, like, especially with male coaches, that may not be asking their female clients about. And one of the things I said was, like, periods, and I said, does your client have a regular bleed? Yes or no? But I didn't say bleed does not equal ovulatory cycle, because it was just supposed to be a primer. And so I laughed because I go like, crap, did I do this? Because then I have a bunch of male coaches asking their clients if they have a bleed, but they don't know whether or not they're ovulating. Shit, now I've, last whatever long it's been now, I've been trying to like reverse that, because women can have a bleed, and it doesn't mean that they're making either sufficient progesterone, estrogens, or androgens. Women's vaginas bleed for a whole host of things. They're not all hormonal.
Can I use that as like the opening clip right there?
Yeah, that's the opening clip. We're cutting that one right there.
Just right away. All right, we're set.
Wait, what?
What's the biggest mistake? What are the biggest mistakes that, if you just think strictly bodybuilding, if you step away from even the health, what are some of the biggest mistakes that women make prepping for shows?
This is a 2-hour show, just so you know.
One, they're not healthy before they start.
Right. So that's
number one, and I say that in terms of, and I, it's 2023. Health is not merely the absence of disease. It's not.
Right.
So just because you don't have some diagnoses, or in your mind all is well, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy. If you don't have a healthy relationship to your body, why is that going to get better if you're prepping to stand on stage pretty much naked and get judged by other people? It's not. Like, it's not at all. And if you're competing for the purpose of trying to prove other people wrong, or to try to just get the ab. I mean, you can get the abs without stepping on stage. Like, some of the motives that people go into the shows with, I'm like, this is much bigger psychological, emotional, and, historical trauma happening that we got to work through before we can do this safely. I see people that start prepping for a show when they don't have the financial resources. I see people prepping for shows when they don't have the time resources, and they try to cram all of these things in, and it's just like, okay, hold on here. What you're asking your body to do in a contest prep is a massive freaking undertaking. And I don't think people always understand that. And that some people can do this safer than other people. Some people have unlimited financial resources. Some people have jobs that allow them to take off and train halfway. Some people have the way in which their epigenetic environment is, it allows them to buffer against certain types of oxidative stress better, therefore recover from workouts better, or their hormonal environment, they have that ovulatory cycle to begin with, but not everybody does to begin with at the beginning of a prep. And so I just see that people are, starting a contest prep, male or female, and they don't recognize where they are today with their health and where they're asking their body to go. And, just thinking, do I have the resources to do this? And yes or no. If I don't, what do I have to do to get there? And so that kind of brings me to my next thing, is that once people, quote, get healthy, it's like, it's like a road stop, or like a rest station. They're there for 5 minutes and they're like, hey, done, on to the next prep, here we come. It's like, no, you have to be able to maintain a certain level of health so you can actually rebuild that reserve. It's like if you go and you work a double overtime shift and you get a higher, pay for that day, well, that's not going to help you save money. That's one day, that's one shift of working more hours. And so now we have to think about how can we build up and almost get a surplus of resources, basic health economics almost of sorts, where it's like we need to have this surplus of resources because we know we're going into like a financial crisis of sorts when we start a prep. And so that's kind of my number 2. So a big part of that is 3. When we talk about like what my area of expertise is, which is like women's health and hormones and reproductive health and ovarian health, is that so many individuals are going into a contest prep and their ovarian hormone function is already in absolute disarray, and they have no bloody idea about what the repercussions of that's going to be. And it's something as simple as you're not going to improve your ovarian health well in a contest prep state. Like, at the end of the day, the fundamental things that we know diminish the ovary's ability to make a healthy, harmonious assortment of hormones. You're asking the complete opposite of it. And so now we're not creating, we're just simply not creating the best environment for fat loss or for maintaining muscularity or being able to buffer against stress. And now let's add some drugs in, because that sounds smart. And so people then start adding in androgens or aromatase inhibitors or stimulants or, I mean, God knows all the other shit that people are doing now. And so it's just, you've literally created this world that is so opposite to how the human body functions well and is really even just conducive to your goals. Before you even started, we could do that. We could get you in that place.
Do you find that there's a struggle with people? Because what I found interesting on the mental health side that you touched on earlier is you take an athlete who, let's just say they did start in a good place mentally and physically and hormonally and financially. And I've had this many times. I typically convince women not to compete when they come to me, or at least run it through their head like, what if we do a photo shoot? Yep. What if we do something else? And the reason that I started doing a lot of that is because you take a woman who's getting ready for a show. She's in the best shape of her life. She's, as far as her look, I should say. You ask her the night before the show. She's ecstatic. She can't believe it. She's thankful. Harvey's mad. And then they do the show. They take 6th place.
Yeah.
Now they're completely unhappy. They cannot believe how bad they look.
Yeah.
Then you start a reverse properly. They're in phenomenal shape, better than they ever were, but now compared to competing, they're fat.
Yeah.
And now they're ready for their next prep. And that's the area that I find a lot of people fall into is this, like you said, now the reserves are already at 0, and it works for a little while.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, whether it's manipulation, just effort, whatever, it works until it doesn't.
Absolutely.
And that's when they switch coaches for doing other shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing is that they may... So, I'm going to try not to tangent here, but right now, more than ever, I'm really proud of our industry for getting on top of things like lab work and blood pressure checks and, keeping your health in check. But we're talking about physiological health. If you're going to go see an MD, you better well also be seeing a mental health practitioner. And I say that for my Olympic athletes that are sprinters, boxers, whatever the discipline is. What you're asking is fundamentally destructive for our brain at some level, because you're not only competing with yourself, but you're asking yourself to compete with other people. And that even the most person with the most grit and fortitude, I will never forget the conversation I had with John Meadows backstage at the Vancouver Pro. I will never forget this conversation, because I think we all think of John as this superhuman when it came to emotional grit, and he is. And I got permission to share this because him and I talked about this before he passed. But he said to me, Victoria, how can I train as hard as because he's I got to go somewhere when I am this lean. That's beyond me. How can I go and every single day of that prep think about coming out first, coming out on top, just demolishing my competition, doing it. And then the day of the show, I have to turn that switch off. And I have to try to be okay with last call out. I have to try to be okay with getting last place. Is there something I'm missing here? And I was like, John, there's no switch. It's not a light switch. There is no switch. This is a battle that you're grappling with, and it's something that I think a lot of other athletes grapple with too. Is this this beautiful thing called self-compassion? Number one, where you can be compassionate for yourself when you're on this stage. But at the end of the day, my dad was here this weekend. We were talking about it. It's sport competitions are fundamentally about an unequal playing field. there are always going to be people better than you in some sense of the way, even if you are first. That's the beautiful thing about competition. But, you know, Dusty, to your point here is that, like, athletes need to have their mental health in check. You're creating an environment not only just by what you do, but also by training. I mean, we know overtraining has a impact on our neurotransmitter and our brain chemistry. We know that hypocaloric has an impact on our neurotransmitters and our brain chemistry. We know that certain drugs do. So if you're doing that and you already have some subconscious kind of connections that have been built, that there can be things happening underneath the surface that you're maybe not even aware about, and that get flipped on the day of that show. You know, myself is I made that decision in 2014 or 2013 to not compete because I was like, okay, I had a horrendous eating disorder, and now I'm going to ask myself to prep. And I'm already like, and I was lean at the time and I was in shape, but I was like, this isn't going to get better. Like, if an alcoholic is not going to voluntarily go into a bar and be surrounded by people drinking for fear of relapse, maybe I shouldn't compete. Maybe that's just not good for me personally. I think we need to be more honest with ourselves. I think we need to be more honest about that thing that makes you tick and gets you up at 5 a.m. to go do your cardio, or I used to do it at 3:30 in the morning, was also that thing that was simultaneously absolutely detrimental for my health and well-being.
Well, don't you think that evolves as well? Because I know with people I've worked with, men and women, but to be honest with you, I always say women are more hardcore. It's not necessarily accurate 100%, gritty, but it just seems to be. And what I run into is when people's addiction to working out overrides their addiction for results. Competitively, forgetting about mental and everything else. And I have to explain to them, okay, we have to decide now, is your goal to work out for 3 hours, or is your goal to get better? Because I need you to go home. You know what I mean?
Well, experience. I mean, can you honestly say to yourself that somewhere in your bodybuilding journey that you maybe haven't done an extra set even when you knew maybe something was not, you know, a knee wasn't tracking properly or a tricep wasn't working, maybe you had too many zingers in your elbow, but you're just like, fuck it, I got to get that last set in. I think we've all done it. We've all taken ourselves to that next place, and in the pursuit that we're doing, we think that's what's required. And, you know, sometimes wisdom comes in here eventually, I hope. Some people have the ability to get humbled, usually by injury or strife or something. And then, you know, they learn from their experiences, their mistakes, and they're able to apply that to move forward. Other people, they're still in that tunnel. My colleague, Dr. Michael Miltek, and I were talking about this with one of the patients we work with. You know, there's an action phase that, you know, how do I lose fat? Versus an exploratory phase. How can I get better so my body will lose fat as it should on its own without a lot of effort? You can't flip somebody from action into exploratory. They got to find that on their own. There's nothing you can say to change them.
Right.
And that's a hard place to be for a coach. It's something I still struggle with. I mean, Scott, he helps me with that a lot because I'm just like, I just want them to be better. Like, why can't they just listen to me? And it's like, wait, no. I've been that dipshit before that did extra training when I wasn't supposed to.
Well, even like the gear talk on the other podcasts, because we do a lot more conversations about like how to use different compounds and stuff like that. We've gotten people who have said, well, a couple guys who are like, hey, you know, when did you guys get into this like health TRT thing? Like, you know, we just want to learn how to run a lot of steroids, basically. And it really is, you know, that's basically what I've heard. Like, well, you know, we need to do the high doses, you know, and
what do you need me for?
Yeah.
Take more.
Well, exactly. Right. And I guess, and part of it is knowing you over the years of really recognizing that the healthier we are, because that goes back to really everything with bodybuilding. The healthier we are, the easier it is to reach our goals. So I do think that as a coach, you know, that's kind of where I'm trying to direct people nowadays is like before I used to feel like you just needed to push harder I would think of bodybuilding as forcing the body to do my will. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Versus getting the body to feel good so that it'll just do it on its own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, I think control is a big thing. We all have a sense of false control. Like, we think if we increase cardio and decrease food, we will facilitate fat loss. We are in control of the human body.
Yeah.
The reality is we don't have any control over it. Like, we don't even understand most of the things. It's space. We understand so little about so much. And that equation may work for a small percentage or a large percentage of your clients, depending on who's coming to you. But I can tell you, the women that come to me, that equation don't work. All the things that we think about facilitating fat loss or muscle gain or whatever, that's not where their body's at.
And by the time they come to you, they're already in a position where they have tried everything.
All the things. Yeah. All the things, and even the things they shouldn't have tried, they've usually tried by that point. And I think that, when we think about like the use, especially in women, of drugs can create a cheat code for a little bit until they don't. Like, same with the men. It's like, T3, cool, yeah, great. But what happens when you go off that and your thyroid is still fucked? Like, what happens when you pull out that Anavar and then you're going, this is like one of the biggest pet peeves that I have, that people go like, well, I didn't virilize last time, so maybe I should double it. I'm like, what?
Right.
What? Like, what?
I always say that drugs hide mistakes.
Absolutely. When they work
and
for
that's
you.
Where, when they click, and that's the issue, a struggle that a lot of us have, is getting people to understand, I need to be seeing your results without drugs.
Yeah.
Once we're on that path and things are happening and we know they're happening and we have data that you are improving, well, then sure, we know what happens if we toss even the smallest thing in.
Yeah.
But the problem is people throw the drugs in first, if they're lucky, see the results, and they don't realize their training is off, their sleeping is off, their mental state is off, all these things. And then when the drugs fall out, that's the drop out of the bottom. It's a very tough conversation that I can't even imagine the level of yours, because it becomes very difficult for us as individuals to speak on our own experiences, because we're all very different. So how your body responds to drugs, the fact that I literally don't feel stress ever in my entire life plays a role in that. You know what I mean? It's been that, like, it doesn't matter what's happening in my life, I don't feel stress. So that's one of those things. It's like,
I wish.
But it's one of those things where it's hard for people to identify when they see a terrible schedule and no sleep and all these things. Like, oh yeah, I lose fat, no problem. And they're like, what?
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the questions that I always ask people, and I've talked about this a lot when I like my education stuff, is like, do you have the fundamental building blocks of being a good human in place? Like, let's not even go to bodybuilding. Like, let's not talk about protein intake. That's like, no, training volume, none of that stuff. That is advanced. Let's, like, whatever below is below bro, like, we got to go there. It's like, are you sleeping? Yes or no?
Right.
Are you eating? Yes or no?
Right.
Are you drinking enough water? Yes or no? And no room for maybes. Like, I want yes or no. Very few things in life I want binary. This is one of those ones I'm like, I want you just to evaluate yourself. We'll talk about it after. Like, do you have social connections? Are you going outside? Are you moving your body? Like, the basic fundamental building blocks. And if we don't have those in place, don't go forward. We got to get those in place first, and then we can take it to the next level, and then we can get into all this stuff about like training volume and things like that. I just think that if we think about our education system, like, people are trying to go from kindergarten to postdoctorate, with skipping everything in the middle. All of those fundamental learning skills, all of those core memories, all of those soft and hard skills, they are skipping forward, because they're going from, I'm literally doing nothing and I'm not have enough for, fundamental being a good human. And now I want to know about carb cycling, intra-workout substrate utilization. I was going to say on trend. Doing a 3-a-day training.
Yeah.
The best split. And I'm just like, wait a second here. Like, we literally just skipped so many steps. And how? Because you have the cheat code, right? You got drugs. That's how we're able to do it. It's like the Adderall. We just all the way forward.
I have a guy that I know pretty well, and I know he doesn't drink enough water.
Yeah.
He's got a real bad habit. He even says, and the other day he was in the gym and he comes up to me, he goes, hey, he's got money, right? And he's like, hey, should I be on GH? I can get the good stuff. and I looked at the clock and I said, because he works weird hours. I looked at the clock. I go, when did you get up? And he said, I got up at noon, and it was like 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I go, how much water did you drink before you come to the gym? And he's like, well, I had a shake. And I go, you should have had like at least 2 liters before you even got to the front door. So don't ask me about GH. And he just laughed. He's like, oh, God.
Yeah.
But it is like, that's a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then you got to think about when you go into periods of intentional high stress, aka contest prep or athletic prep or whatever it might be. Your reserves. So if the fundamental building blocks are building your reserves up, what do we have to do if we're going through economic turmoil? We want to have more in the bank. We want to be as ambitious with our saving as we are with our spending. And how do we do that? We double down on the fundamentals. We don't pull sleep back. I remember saying that on a podcast years ago now where I was like, if a client hasn't slept, I'll, tell them not to go do their cardio. What's more important is them either chilling the fuck out or getting a nap in later in the day. And I don't want that being another stressor to add to it. Because the reality is that one-offs are okay. It's when this becomes habitual we run into issues. Right? That one meal you miss is not going to make you drop 10 pounds, but if that one meal now turns into one meal every day for the next 6 weeks, which then turns into 2 meals for the next 6 weeks, it's the habits that we start to form, and that when we're in a stress state or anxiety state or, just feeling on overload, it's really easy for our poor amygdala to be like, you don't need that, bro. Like, you're good. You don't need that. It's a survival mechanism. It's what's allowed us as humans to evolve to where we are today. And so I just think that people, the pursuit of high performance is inhibiting. Whether we're talking about athletes or CEOs or, whatever, tech entrepreneur, whatever we're talking about, if they're going to a high performance world, there's going to be things that are going to have to maybe suffer as a result. Intentionally, though. We know that intentionally. They should be intentional at least. And so, the way that, back to performance, it all comes back to drugs eventually. But I love this example because to me this was such an important part of my learning was that if we think of health, or I'm going to use the term for health, but if we think of health as being this level playing field here. So if we think of prepping for a bodybuilding show, you're doing this with your health. Right? We're going under. And so when we use supplements or if we use certain lifestyle things or drugs, we really should just be doing this. Because if we go above what we have the threshold and the capacity for, I mean, I can get super cellular and super science here, but if our receptor signaling and the ways in which we were able to metabolize certain compounds, if we go too much over, we're not going to be able to handle it. We're going to screw ourselves up. So you may be able to go a little bit over, but you got to come back down again. A little bit over, you got to keep coming back up and down, up and down, up and down. But really, we got to think about drugs, medicine, as being restorative. You're already a mutant. Let's just keep you a mutant. Whereas, and that was what the German model was in sport medicine. It was the German model. If we think about the East Germans and why they just kicked everybody's ass, and everybody's like, oh, they're state-sponsored doping. It's like, well, actually, they were just trying to keep their athletes healthy. And then the good old American model was like, fuck them,
double down.
Exactly.
If we'll one is good, three is better.
Yeah, we'll show you what's up. And then, now we've got all these athletes that have cancer. We've got all these athletes that are prematurely dying. And it's because they did this. And the saddest thing is they never had the foundations in place. They never were going to, if the Germans were getting told when to wake up, when to sleep, what to eat. They were literally in, like, camps. Whereas, left to your own devices, you're gonna do what you do, and that it's just such a scary world. Because right now with bodybuilding, it's like, if we go back to females, what I'm seeing is that women are using things, and I saw this coming back in like Arnold 2017. Women are using things like fillers and Botox and laser hair removal and all of these different cosmetic ventures to essentially erase certain really important visual or visceral effects of androgen, I'm going to say abuse at this point, that are the end point of a huge, massive chain of things happening internally, and probably for some women quite a while. But they're taking that end point that it used to stop women in their tracks and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And now they're just like, we got this. A little bit of laser here, a little bit of resurfacing here. We're good. We're fine. Awesome. On to the next. And I'm going, okay, something is wrong with this. Because your body, if you're not even going to put the things in place to begin with that you need to do this safely and healthy, and if you're not going to listen to when you're getting some of these warning signs that you're literally erasing them, when is it going to end?
Right.
All right, let's do some fun stuff.
This is fun.
Dusty's got the fun. Dusty's got the funny stuff.
Ron, your mic is off.
You're off, Ron. We can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Ron.
Can't hear you.
But it looks like you were saying
that
something
was
really
great.
important.
I loved all that. I just sat there and absorbed it all. It was great.
It was good.
That's the least amount of talking I've done for a while. Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Dusty had the comedy. Dusty's here because he's the kid that brings the comedy, and he had some ideas.
This isn't comedy. These are important steps in this new family's relationship, and we are checking their ability before either one of them competes to answer these questions first. So, first up is the Newlywed Game, even though you're not technically newlywed, but we're about to find out some things on your guys' opinion. So, I'm going to ask a question. You point at yourself or you point at the other person. Rapid fire. Ready?
Wait, what do you mean? Okay, the first one, I'm not sure how it goes. So
listen, you've never seen the Newlywed Game. It's simple. No. If I say, which of you is a boy? You point at yourself, Scott. She's going to point at you.
Okay, gotcha.
And I just got in trouble by a bunch of acronyms. Anyways, who's the better cook? Who's the funniest? Don't be a pussy, Scott. There we go.
I'll go with me.
Although sometimes
she's funny.
Sometimes I pull out these jokes that even I laugh at. So.
Oh my god, yeah.
Top
they just
shelf,
like out of nowhere.
smarty pant jokes.
No, bro.
How you like
so
them
bro.
stuff?
Yeah.
So bro
that Scott's like, where did this even come from?
That's why I married her.
Yeah.
His virgin ears. Who's the better driver?
You put a bottle of Tren in your Christmas stocking. I love it. Okay.
It depends on what you define as better.
See, this is good. Come, give me examples then. You got to answer the question.
Who will get us there fastest? Who will get us there with the most amount of hair still on our head?
I trust her driving. I'm very confident in her driving skills. She's by the book, 100%, stops 100% at every stop sign.
Who uses their turn signals?
See, understands that the speed limit is just a suggestion.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. Okay. Who's more likely to get arrested? All right. Who spends more money frivolously?
Desk pop.
Yeah. There it is. Who has better style?
You're pretty stylish.
Oh, you are. Wait.
I'd say you're pretty stylish. I'm going with you.
I have not gone shopping in like 5 years.
But you're just pretty, so you don't have to try. There's that. I'm going with you.
We never win this one, guys.
That's awesome.
Who is more likely to lose their keys?
Probably me. Yeah.
You do.
All right, this is getting good. We're getting to the important stuff. Who has better music taste? I knew that would happen.
I don't like robots having sex. It's not my jam.
I'm siding with Victoria on this. I forgot about that. All right. Who is more likely to move to a secluded island?
I feel like me. I feel like me.
I like we're getting some disagreements here. This is fantastic.
I don't leave the house.
Like, when do I leave the house other than to shoot?
To the range.
But I could do that at the secluded island. So
True.
That's a valid point.
Just do it from your front porch with a cup of coffee in your hand, Scott.
Yep.
A couple more before we're on to the next round. Who showers more?
Yeah.
Boom.
I'd say, probably a little bit more.
I sweat a lot when I train.
I sweat a lot when I train. All right, perfect. And I know the answers to those too, so I don't have to go those. Okay, now we have a few that are for all three of you. I'm just the host on this, so I need your answers.
Okay.
Overrated and underrated. Seinfeld, the television show.
Still underrated.
Still underrated. History will remember it properly.
She won't.
Overrated.
She won't watch it with me.
Overrated.
What? Why?
I think that 13-year age gap makes it so it was cool for him and it's not for me.
You'll have
You just
to
made
watch
all of us old.
Here's my suggestion. You have to watch a couple key episodes from a historical perspective. Just to understand. Like,
should we get Ron's guide to Seinfeld?
Yeah, we could use
a couple
that.
of the Emmy-winning, pick a couple of the Emmy-winning episodes that were really like,
The Contest.
Watch a couple of those. Yeah, like there's a bunch of them, right? And you watch those ones, and you're like, yeah, this was an important show.
Now, I did get her watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and now,
well, it's Seinfeld on acid.
Ron, would you agree with me that it is a travesty, and it should be a crime that Dusty has not seen this show?
Always Sunny in Philadelphia is absolutely brilliant. I mean, even the new episodes, which are like, they're in season 15, so like it's kind of ridiculous at this point.
Yeah.
But they're still funny. Like I laughed out loud to one the other day.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm watching season 15 right now. I still laugh out loud, like laughed out loud, But the first the first 10 seasons are just like ridiculous. Yeah. And then Danny DeVito joins in season 2.
That's why. So we started in season 1, and we watched a couple, and I was like, but this isn't a good example of how good this show is. So we jumped straight to season 2, and I think that's where it takes off.
So you got it.
Season 1,
are you hooked then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Victoria, are you in? Are you hooked?
I am.
She's not hooked, dude.
No, I am. Hooked. It is.
Yes or no? It's like your questions.
It is entertaining.
They are, if I may say, do you think they're like the worst people in the world?
No.
They're horrible people.
No,
they're pretty awful people.
They're also
they are awful, but they're such great caricatures. Like they're like this like character foil on steroids.
Yeah.
There again, she goes in bringing drugs into it.
Who's your favorite character on Always Sunny?
None.
Because
they're all awful, right? Like they're all awful people.
It's a trick question. Well,
how about you, Ron?
I think that at the end of the day, I think that I like Dennis the most.
Dennis is good.
I think Dennis is the most evil.
Yeah.
He's the most. There's something really broken inside Dennis.
Yeah.
And it's,
he who reminds me of the average Vancouverite.
He's sort of up. Yeah.
That pretentious, like,
super pretentious, ridiculous, insane.
Yeah. The vein and
I like Charlie. Charlie's my guy.
Yeah. Charlie's the greatest idiot in television history.
Yeah. You got to watch it, Dusty. I love that season 2.
That I have already completely derailed this episode. This is what I do. That's what I'm here for.
Go ahead.
Okay. Another over-under. Pre-contest, switching from oil-based to water-based drugs during prep.
Totally
Way
overrated.
Overrated.
Unnecessary.
Love
This
that
Half-Life
answer,
people
sorry.
don't seem to understand all that. It just blows me away.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, good. I had to do that because I had this argument just the other day with somebody who was arguing to the death that it was time. And I'm like, your pictures say it is not time. Your pictures say it is time to change nothing. But so
You will change nothing,
brought
and
you
you
guys
will
in.
love it.
Yeah. You will like it. Since you guys were, this came up this morning because someone that we know is doing this. Bachelor and bachelorette parties.
Overrated.
Overrated.
Way overrated. I never gave a shit about
See?
any of that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't like
baffling my
humans
mind.
enough.
I don't like any celebrations.
Oh, really, Ron? Thanksgiving, Ron.
That's a meal. That's
Well,
a meal.
yeah.
Short window of time.
Celebrations that are solely based around food.
That's
I'll take
acceptable.
all the food
All right.
holidays. Come on now, that's ridiculous.
It's
Don't
different.
step on the food holidays. Yeah.
Phenomenal. This one's personal. Hip thrusts.
Underrated for me.
Underrated. What are you practicing something at home? Go ahead. What's everybody else say?
Technically, yes.
So this, yeah, you go ahead.
That wasn't a
Victoria.
sex joke.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't, and it was.
I have a lot of thoughts on this that cannot be contained in one word.
Yes.
Oh, so are you saying they're accurately rated? Because it's okay. You can say that if you want. That's a thing.
I don't
working
know.
say
No,
you get an
no, I
accurately rated
think
from that
it's needs elaboration.
You're
Like maybe
allowed.
like
That's
I could footnote it. Like
Okay.
that's what I asterisk.
You're allowed.
Footnote.
But you still have to
You say
pick.
what you say, and then you have to defend yourself. That's allowed. It's key.
In the current climate, I think they are
That's all the climate matters.
overrated.
There we
There
go.
you
And I think that although a brand new study came out last week on this, okay, but this is my thing, is that I don't think people are doing them correctly. I think that people are, in our lovely black and white industry where people are falling into all these camps, there's this bandwagon of hip thrusts that are leading people down this road of, do or die, the best thing that ever was, and they're failing to see all of the other movements that are out there and perfecting those and working on those. I also feel that individuals are not actually using their glutes a lot of times. They're using everything, it's like doing a deadlift for powerlifting versus a deadlift for like bodybuilding style,
Yep.
where people are using everything, including their big toe, to get that bar up, versus like the fine tooth chisel, or even even an axe versus a chainsaw. And I look at people especially from and I can get super sciencey on this, but I look at people, especially women in the fitness industry with hypertonic pelvic floor muscles, and they're just going to fuck themselves up because they are not using their glutes. They're using their pelvic floor muscles to do it. And you're already having a hypertonic pelvic floor, and it's just like, good Lord, no wonder we have so many women that are struggling with constipation and, sexual dysfunction and urine issues. It's like, because you're not using your proper muscles. You're not using your glutes because you're using way too much freaking weight to do it.
Right.
Can we just say that it's because they're doing hip thrusts so they'll get off the Smith machine? Can we
Well,
just blame it? No. Let's lie for a minute.
I started with hip thrusts, Dusty. I started with my mom had a Jane Fonda book in the basement from the 70s. And when I started my
This is
fitness
awesome.
journey, I used that freaking Jane Fonda book. I learned a lot too, because it really, I learned about what hip thrusts were. Scott, what is it? Over or underrated? Do I have good
Yes.
glutes?
Wait, I don't know how it's to say
Answer over underrated.
But what does that mean?
Her glutes
though?
are
Accurately
underrated, Scott.
rated?
That's
They're
a
good,
quick answer.
underrated, yes.
Do I have
Your glutes
very
are-
well developed hamstrings?
No, we'll just say your glutes. Underrated.
Okay, hamstrings.
Okay.
Underrated.
Yeah. So I've always had a decent backside, and I've never done heavy hip thrusts. I maybe did. For me personally, I found a short bar, usually even a group fitness bar,
Right.
and I would load maybe between 25 to 50 pounds aside. Maybe. because it was about where I put them in my workouts that actually made sense, and it was about what muscles I was using. I wasn't using everything but the kitchen sink. Like, I was using it as a fine-tooth chisel. Now, I've tried doing them heavy, and guess what? It didn't work shit for me. And all the machines that are out there for somebody who's 5 feet, they just don't feel right. They're just not made for me. I haven't been to a commercial gym since 2019, and I really don't want to go back. Because I don't want to see that shit. I'm keeping it in 2019. The good memories.
I love that you went off on this, because that's the area where things have gotten lost. Like you said, as you get into camp, and it's like, I like to ask people, like, I would love to ask people that are doing really weird things in the gym. First off, what do you think you're doing? Because you're not. But then second, are you actually feeling it in that area?
Yeah.
Because that's where things get derailed.
Are you feeling it in your quads? Do you know how many women are saying I'm like, why are you feeling it in your quads?
It's almost hard to do. All right, good. So you all stuck to my answers pretty strong there. This one's a little bit of a personal attack against you Canadians. Canadian bacon.
Oh, way overrated.
Thank God.
So
go ahead, you two.
Like, you know what the funny thing is?
Argue for your crap. Go ahead.
The funny thing is, we just call it bacon. Like, I don't even know what Canadian bacon is. It's just bacon. We just have bacon.
It's like soggy bacon.
Yeah.
It's like ham.
See, I don't eat that.
Yeah, it's like
it is like ham. It is basically ham.
No, we don't eat that shit. That's a made-up thing.
Yeah.
You guys eat bacon like we do. You eat American bacon.
Yeah.
You're trying to clog arteries.
Crispy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, gross.
Right.
No, not extra crispy.
Yeah. I never ask for ham on anything.
Right. Well,
you just triggered Ron. You triggered Ron. He does not like ham.
We don't have to have this turkey is better than ham at Thanksgiving conversation again. Okay.
We're not going here again. We don't have time. Okay. I'm almost done. Canadian free healthcare.
Overrated.
Is it?
100%.
But you get your medication for free.
There's no choice. There is no choice. I think that a better system would be one that is a mixture of a blended. Because I think, number one, a lot of Americans perceive that Canadian healthcare is free. It's not free. We are paying either MSP or OHIP or whatever, so you're paying that. You also have to meet certain requirements, and then you're also having to usually get a secondary insurance on the side, whether it's Pacific Blue Cross or there's other ones as well. And so in order for actually getting your medication covered, you're getting a secondary insurance unless you're under a certain tax bracket or you're above a certain age or something like that. So number one, Canadian healthcare is not free. You want to ride in an ambulance in Ontario, that's not free. You're getting a bill for that. So I think there's a perception that's definitely not accurate too. I have been to American hospitals, I've been to Canadian hospitals, and I would much rather be in an American hospital. I mean, Scott went to a trauma center in London, Ontario, and he was like, this is the most disgusting, old, dingy place. And he was like, this is like one of Canada's best hospitals. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, it was a really old building. It didn't look like state of the art. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's not uncommon.
Yeah.
No, and that's what I had to explain to him. And then we went to one when a couple, was that a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And I literally was like dumbfounded. I was like, the doctor just asked if he could get you anything to drink? I'm like, what? What is this? Like, this is the cleanest, nicest hospital. And like, my mom was a very high up in healthcare, and she managed hospitals. She built hospitals. That was what her career she did. And it's like, I've seen the inside and intricacy. And it's just, I don't think the Canadian healthcare system is all that people think it is. I think that for some people, it can be very beneficial in terms of, being able to get elective surgeries covered to some extent, but you're not getting the best doctors. You don't have the choice. If you go and, let's say you go and you tear your quad, Dusty, you might be 6 months to get any type of imaging done.
Well, that's what I've run into. That's why I asked that topic, is because I have a few clients from Canada, and their personal disease is that they wait. And I'm like, just go pay. What are you doing?
You will die before you get certain things done in Canada, and that's the sad reality of it.
Yeah.
Or you'll have care that's not, there's no continuity of care. There's no integrative practice. We have such a terrible doctor shortage that even, I mean, to get a general practitioner, you're going to have to, really do research if you can even self-select into, say, like a gynecologist or an orthopedic surgeon, because if not, you're just going to get who the referral system is going to. And if you have any, major health concerns, like, honestly, good luck. And I hate to say that, but I watched the medical system kill my mom. So it's just like the thing that she helped build, I watched it literally take her down. And it's the saddest thing, because it's just not this utopian ideal that Americans, now that I'm, on the other side, I'm going like,
right.
So
I'd rather pay.
My take on this is, she mentioned you don't get the best doctor necessarily. There are there's lots of amazing doctors, obviously, like there's some amazing doctors, but I really like the merit system, right? I want to be able to look up a doctor and see, this guy's got 5 stars from a bunch of athletes. This is a guy I'm going to go see, right? We can't do that in Canada. You get this luck of who you get, and you got to try to shop around and convince someone to take you. It's just crazy. Now, having said that, I'm not sure if I just got lucky, or if, maybe it's just because my doctor cared. But when I tore my quad, it was a full rupture. So they took me straight to emergency. And the doctor who walked in to see me happened to be a surgeon who worked on athletes. And his specialty was actually, he's like the guy they call if someone's arm and shoulder gets crushed. Yeah. He puts that back together. So I said, "Hey, do I need a knee specialist?" And he looked me straight in the eye and he goes, I'm the guy you want. Yeah. Your quad tear is super easy. I can do this in my sleep. He goes, I put arms and shoulders and crushed hands back together. That's really intricate. This is super easy. I'm going to take care of you. And then he turned and he comes back. He goes, I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to say yes. And I go, okay. And he goes, are you a professional athlete? And I go, yes. And he goes, good. That means I can get you in right away. And he turned and he typed and he goes, I'm going to get you in within 72 hours because this has to be handled immediately. Do not let this go longer than that. I'm calling you. So that's who I got. Yeah. Right. That
was luck of the draw.
That's not what happens for everyone else.
No.
Wow. They get well, I don't think it's torn. Let's come back in a week if it's not getting better. Right. Yeah. That's what they get.
Right. It's all balled up.
Absolutely. And the crazy thing too is that in the US, you can do private labs. Try doing private labs in Canada. There's one company right now, and they $90 for progesterone. I know for one thing, I know what progesterone should cost you. I know what the back end is. When I saw that, I was like, "Can you fly down? Can you drive across the border?" Because this is not okay. And so there's loopholes, but I hate having to take loopholes. Sometimes depending on the province you live in, you can see a naturopath, which is a pay for fee service. So you're going to be paying out of pocket. And sometimes they might be able to do lab draws. So there are these ways around it. But, if we're trying to create healthy humans as, bodybuilding industry, it's you can't do that in Canada.
All right. Yeah. Final thing, since I've completely derailed this. How do you feel about Scott's Crocs?
I bought them for him.
Is that to keep other women away from him?
No, it was the only thing he asked for Christmas. I had no choice. And it was when the Christmas we spent apart because of COVID. So, I couldn't even do something cook dinner
creative.
Or create. Yeah, no,
it was a hard Christmas,
literally was bound to one gift.
She's not very good
you
either.
You set her up for failure. Yeah. You set her up for... She was the Canadian healthcare system.
But I will tell you this. I love my husband more than anything and anyone. But he sometimes gets a little bit sidetracked.
Awesome. Sidetracked?
Yeah. So Crocs provide us an ability to get out the door faster if he's wearing them.
This goes back to him leaving the house.
Love this.
me
I was
the
like, where's this going?
Well, I usually don't wear them out. I mean,
No,
maybe to walk
but like
around the
to
block.
walk the dogs, because you'll be like, oh, I'll be up in 5 minutes, and then like 10 minutes later, and I'll be like, fuck, now he's gotta go find his shoes. But if he's got his Crocs on, we're good.
We just go.
We're good.
They're indoor, outdoor. I don't have to think. It's one less.
They make
point.
you a more versatile man.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
He puts the sport mode
You're
on,
an
we're good.
indoor husband.
Yeah.
Sport mode on. Just clips them into place.
Yeah, that way I can walk faster with the dogs,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I know we're not going to go for a
God.
long walk when he has them on, but
Yeah, you also know he's distance restricted too, so
Yeah.
there's no surprise in that.
But there's,
Yeah.
we're out the door.
That's all true, too. That's 100% true.
Great. That's great.
This is so solid.
great.
All right, well, thank you for letting me bring a little bit different side of you guys out. I needed that.
That was fun.
Yeah. I have to congratulate Victoria on being our longest interview ever.
Really?
Oh, wow.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, because usually, Ron, you're like, well, we've taken an hour of your time. You've been very generous. And,
Yeah.
Now we
But
don't say any of that
she's
shit.
right there in the house with you, so it's not like she
Yeah.
has anywhere to go, right?
She had to travel,
So, yeah,
you
it was
know, or
awesome.
anything.
It was
Yeah.
awesome.
No, it's funny. Actually, you know what, Ron? When you were talking about how we met and when we met, I had to laugh because we went for coffee the first day of grad school. You were at an event
I
at
remember.
Popeyes and Kits.
Yeah,
and that was
yeah,
my
yeah.
very first day of grad school. And I remember doubting myself and being like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I shouldn't be. And you were like, no, you're meant to do this. Here I am.
Wow.
Ron.
Look at you.
Look at you, Ron.
Instagram and grad school. Like, good
Yeah.
job.
One good
Well,
decision,
you
one
were-
bad one. Good job.
You were very obviously a very intellectual person. Like, I remember right off the bat, I just, you meet some people and you just immediately go, this person's just fucking idiot. And then you meet some people and you're like, oh, yeah, this person's really got a huge capacity for absorbing information and is super curious and checks all the boxes for being a bit of a smarty pants. And that was you. Yeah.
That was you.
So easily recognized. Easily recognized.
What did you tell me, too? You
So-
said Ron was always a good storyteller at
Oh,
the gym.
I mean, when you talk about like, yeah, after the training sessions at Hardcore, I'm like, I wish people would have known. Like that, like in the front where the kind of the juice bar, like front little areas, it was like the church of Ron Partlow, and like people would just stop and sit and listen. If they were like coming in to do their workout or going out or even in their workout, it was just like
Look at you, Ron.
they would stop and listen and sit. And sometimes it would be like an hour and a half later.
And this is
I
after
told
Ron's
you
done
we should
training.
Start a cult. Why don't you listen to me?
Yeah.
You could
Yeah,
be
we
our
used
pastor.
we used to train, and then after training, we just sit at the front,
Yeah.
and I just thought we were all socializing for an hour every day.
It was just you. It was just you.
No, it was great though. Like I mean, like gym was great. It was
No,
It was like
awesome.
a
It was-
podcast, but only for those
Yeah.
6 people that were sitting
pre
there.
Yeah.
podcast. It was
Yeah.
it was like it was the gym's little podcast that was for people walking through the foyer only.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And only certain like the gym crowd there, it was like a certain type of person went there, so they got
juice
it.
heads.
Yeah. Really. Yeah.
Well, I mean, your gym had a juice area. I thought that was cool all by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hardcore juice, yeah.
Mine didn't have that. It said smoothie place.
No.
Yeah.
And
It was a good
Dusty,
time.
do you remember when I met you?
No, I don't remember much of anything. Remember, I almost died. Where did we meet?
We met you were in Vancouver doing a guest appearance at a
Right.
show, and it was in the lobby of the theater, and it was everybody was in watching prejudging, and you sat out at the booth. You didn't go in.
Yes.
And I want to say it was, what year did you turn pro?
14.
So it was 14. It was you just turned pro, because I remember I congratulated you on turning pro, and your eyes got big, like, how the fuck does she know who I am and how I just turned pro? And then I had to explain that I'm friends with John Meadows, and like then I think we talked, well, I mean, it was a long ass show, because I think we talked like all of prejudging, which at that point there was like so many bikini girls, and that was the first time we met.
Yeah, well, because I had done 2 other guest postings in Canada before that.
Yeah.
And I actually learned as a bodybuilder who knew bodybuilding to not watch prejudging or I would get angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I almost always disagreed with the judging.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, we're not going in there anymore. I just learned that I would get frustrated. I was like, yeah, we're going to stay in the lobby from now on. And usually that would mean I was hanging out alone because literally in Canada, like bodybuilding's really popular. Like everyone goes in, like people leave their booths and go watch. You know, I mean, it's
because no one steals anything.
It's Canada,
like in America, you come back out, there is no booth.
Yeah.
There's no booth. It's gone. All the free samples gone.
Your booth is up on blocks.
Your table has no legs. It's just sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that is classic.
Oh,
God, that's so...
Yeah, because I remember walking away from that conversation, Dusty, and going like, either he was really bored, which is why he just talked to me for as long as he did, or maybe I know more about training than I actually do. And I was like, no, he was just bored. That was what I settled on.
She determined, no, I'm actually very good at just, if it was bad, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go watch the show now. Hey, it was good meeting you. Good times.
Well, that was fantastic. Thank you for everything, Victoria, and thanks for coming on the show. And hopefully the people listening got like, you know, that was like full of some wisdom, sort of like some big picture stuff. I feel they could pull out of that, you know, might check some other boxes in their head. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can instill a concept in someone and it can sort of lead them in the right direction without having to actually, you know, do it all yourself. So I think there's a lot there for people. And I really appreciate what he had to say too. There's some great reminders in there. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you guys for
And
having
how
me.
do people, just give everybody the rundown, you know, your Instagram, what you got coming up, that sort of thing.
My Instagram I don't use very often.
But she has it.
I have it. It's just victoriafelkar.com is my website. And my Facebook and my Instagram. And my Threads, which I'm going to try to get into.
Yeah,
I think I can get onto that one.
I think Threads will be good for you.
And what's the big project right now? If you had to say you were working on one main goal right now, what is it?
Scott.
Side project, husband.
PhD, finishing. So,
There you go.
Yeah, writing, but then I've got 2 speaking engagements this year too. So I've got Swiss in October. We're heading to Australia in August for a big one as well. And possibly another one in December, I think. So.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. So you're at the big Smarty Pant forums, the Swiss people. That's great.
I'm excited. Swiss is going to be cool.
It's supposed to be good.
I'd love to come.
Really
I'm unable to come, but that would be great.
It's going to be cool.
Yeah,
We're going to
okay.
get a bunch of followers. A bunch of our listeners are going to go. So I'm excited to meet them.
It'd be a bit of a meetup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks, Victoria. Again, thanks, Scott, the producer, and Dusty for everything. And remember, like, share, subscribe, comment, and
Ring the bell.
there you go. IamMutant.com, Dusty20, Big Round 20. And remember, keep a producer homed for the price of a cup of coffee. The Think Big Bodybuilding Media Patreon. There you go, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know,
and thank you to everybody
yeah.
who is helping to support through Patreon. You guys are freaking awesome. You left us a bunch of questions. Some of them were for It's Just Bodybuilding. We will tackle them next time.
You
Perfect.
bet. Thanks, everybody. And remember, it's just bodybuilding.